Hi again. Continuing with this set of videos on how to create your spreadsheet model, what we're going to start adding in here now are ways to visualize the data and a couple of slightly more fancy bits. So what we want to be able to do, I apologize by the way if my sound is a little bit different from the previous videos. I am in a different setting, so I do apologise over that. Hopefully it's coming through clear enough anyway. So what we want to do is to add some charts of the capability to add charts within here. Now, there are a range of different charts that we can use for spreadsheet models. So if I click on recommended charts, I have a few available here. So we have things like column charts, line charts, pie charts, and so forth. And we use all of these for different reasons. So you've got column charts and line charts, which will do things like displaying values over a period of time. You've got a bar chart, a pie chart, which will compare like percentages of a certain value. And you've got a range of other charts as we go further down, which have their own pros and cons. Now, this is not ultimately a unit about using graphs, but in terms of visualizing data, it is quite a useful thing to do because people will be able to view types of data easier in a graph than as opposed to something like having it in a set of figures like we have previously. So I'm just going to create a couple of different types of chart. Now you are going to ultimately have to make the decision moving forward as to what types of chart you're going to use within your spreadsheet. You're going to have to do things like going in and ensuring things like legends are correct, and ensuring your X and Y axis are labeled correctly. And you know, Excel makes it relatively straightforward to do. What I'm not going to do is show you how to do things like pivot tables. You're welcome to try and put a pivot table in there, but it's not necessarily mandatory. So if I just do, like, for example, a game. So let's just do one game in here, FIFA 20. What I can do to select data which is not connected to each other. So what I mean by that is if I want to do FIFA 20 and then just have the values from these 4 quarters, what I can't do is just highlight that because we'll get this strategy in our chart and we'll get this grade 1. We don't want either of those in our chart. So what we can do is hold down the control key or command on a Mac, and then I'm highlighting the title because I want to know what game it is, and then I'm going to highlight these quarter 1 through quarter 4 values. Then I can click on recommended charts, and it's given me a clustered column. I must admit I'm not 100% sure about the difference between this so-called clustered column and a straight-up column, but we can see it does pretty much what we want it to do. So we have these 4 different values. It's giving me a preview when I put the mouse over it. Now what it's not doing is bringing through the Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, so you can potentially do that when you go forward. But it will set it up for us, or we can have like a line chart which will do a very similar job. Okay, remember these are values over time ultimately, so that's a perfectly viable chart. What wouldn't be is something like a pie chart. I mean, I say that. I mean, if you're looking at the percentage of when a game was sold over the course of a year, and I guess maybe from that perspective we could do that potentially. Although it's not actually what I was thinking about when I started making this. So I'm just going to go into a line chart and I'm just going to click OK, and it will give me this graph. Right? And you'll find that this should update if you change the graph. Change your figures, sorry. Change your graph. You can see that it did that. When I changed the value here to 5,000, this went from down here to up here. I'm just going to do Control Z and send it back. So I can see straight away. Okay, I don't need to look at any figures in here to know that the worst sale was in quarter 2 and the best was in quarter 4. However, what you are missing are things like legends and things like X and Y axis, which we can change within here. Okay, so we can add axis in. We can add things like legends in here. And guys, I'm going to back you to be able to have a go at trying to find that out yourself. And that'll be the same for the bar chart I'm going to do next. So I'm going to use a bar chart for this. Now, ultimately, you are going to have long-term the figures for these three sheets. At the minute, it's going to be naught for these two. Let's just put in some holding figures, shall we? Just to enable us to be able to make this chart. You will have actual figures in here. I'm going to change this to currency so that when it displays in the graph, it should be nicer. Insert. Now this should be a pie chart. Okay. And that's going to need labels, and it's going to need legends so that I would know what each one of these is. I mean, you can see that you've got game, you've got music, and you've got film, but you don't know what it is. Okay, so it could be anything. It could be sales of game. It could be all sorts of different potential items. So you're going to want to label that so it makes it easier for somebody to be able to look at. So you're going to need a range of different charts within your spreadsheet model. Like I said, ultimately the different charts are useful for different things, so you're going to have to decide which different charts to use at a given point. Moving on from here, what I want to add in here is a front sheet. By the way, guys, for the charts, you could quite conceivably have a tab with a page with all of your charts on it. You know, there wouldn't be anything wrong with that. Front page. You don't have to call it front page. You can call it something different if you wish. We're going to need the developer tab. So developer tab is not on by default in Excel. You're going to need to turn it on. And the way that or make it appear, the way that you do that is by going into your options and then going into this down here. Select Customize Ribbon, and then you will find on the right-hand side, so it's off by default. Okay, you'll need to click it, and that will turn it on. So mine is already on, so it's not going to make any difference for me. But for you, you will have this extra item in the ribbon now appear. So we're going to add a series of macros and buttons to this sheet. And I appreciate that this is not a particularly big spread book, I was about to say workbook example, but at the same time, what you will find is adding elements to increase things like usability is going to be very useful going forward. You might find that you are working with workbooks that have 20, 30, 40 plus worksheets within them, and making it easier for somebody to use is going to be really important. Now, what a macro is a recording of a series of actions that you are going to do. And actually, it sounds very fancy, but in terms of being able to go and do it, it's not that difficult, really. So we can click on Developer, and we can record the macro straight away, should we so wish. What we're going to do is add buttons in here, which are also found within here by clicking Insert, and then I can find the button. Yep. Sorry, I just had a quick. Okay, so the recording of the macro, you have to be ready, okay, to record your macro before you go and do it, because it will literally record everything that you do for a set period of time. And basically, for what we're going to do, you're effectively recording one and only one button click, really. So the recording of the macro, this is going to be going to game. I'm not going to do all of the macros for you. You know, ultimately, I'll show you how to do one, and you guys can then apply it to the other buttons that you're going to create. So I'm going to call this button game. I'm going to click OK. You want to give your EB projects must be saved Mac, so I'm going to need to save this as macro enabled workbook. I've started recording, but actually how long I actually take to do this doesn't really it won't impact it. The only thing it's kind of recording is the button clicks. All I need to do, because I want a button here, or wherever, it could be anywhere on here, you guys can make it look nice. It's going to take me from this front page to the game page, so I'm just going to do that one click, and then I'm going to stop recording, and then I have my macro. Which is beautiful. So I just click design mode. Okay, so we can add in here a button. So draw out this button, and we need to do that at this point. It's too early for that. Sorry, I think I used the wrong one here actually. A memory lapse here for a minute. I'm just going to save this as a macro enabled workbook. Get that error message with my screen. And then insert. No, I'm just going to use a shape. Assign macro. And basically what this will happen is when I click on this when I click on this rectangle, it's going to take me to the game sheets. Okay, and now you can see that when I hover my mouse over it, turns it into the recognized symbol for a button. When I click on it, it's going to take me to the right page. I was a bit thrown then because I also had those highlighted, so I wondered whether it would continue to highlight those, but it doesn't, so that's good. So guys, you can ultimately do things like adding text to this button. You can do things like making it look a lot nicer than I have. You can add things like titles and so on. Okay, so you can go ahead and do all of that. I'm sure that you guys know how to do things like formatting. What I'm also going to do is to create a splash screen, and this is going to be the last item that I'm going to do for this particular video, and indeed before we move on to doing a separate video on planning later on. So we're going to do a splash screen. The splash screen is something that displays when you first load up a program. And we're going to do this again in developer. We are going to go into VB now. So what I need to add is a user form, because this is what is going to be displayed. Okay, so user form. And you can do things in this user form. Let me drag this out. Like you can add in images, you can add in text, all kinds of different stuff. So I'm going to add an image in here. Drag it out. And what I need to do is I need to find the image. Picture, not image, just throw me a bit. Then we'll click here, and do you know what? Let's get a picture of the Ukraine. You guys can find a more sensible picture, one that's more related to the topic. Welcome to our spreadsheet. I mean, I imagine this might well look quite small on your screens, especially if you're looking at it on a mobile, although these are not really designed to be watched on a mobile. I put it in the wrong place. I have put it in the wrong place. Sorry. There we go. So I put it in the caption. I originally put it in main, and it should have been in caption. VB, by the way, is quite an old programming language. Obviously, you guys have been using Python. We're not going to do anything particularly radical in here. So we're going to make our user form. That's just going to pop up when we open our spreadsheet. So what we're going to do now is go into this workbook and we're going to start typing some code in. So we're just going to make private sub open. User form 1, as I've called it, really exciting name. User form 1.show. And then what we actually need to do is set the length of time that it's going to display for. Okay, so we're going to go off here and we're going to go into user form, and what we need here is the code. Okay, I don't want to say click that. So basically what's going to happen is that when we load this for a number of seconds that we are going to specify for it. Okay, so what we need to do is say when you launch the program, display for a certain amount of time. So this is in hours, days, and seconds. Okay. So it's really straightforward stuff, and basically this is going to be displaying for 4 seconds. Okay, so it says private sub user form activate. Okay, so the user form activate is just the name that I've given it. Application wait, so that's how long it's going to be displayed on the screen for, and then to stop displaying. Okay, that's it. That's pretty much all we need to do. But you do need to make sure that this code is applied to user form 1 and not to your workbook. Otherwise, you will need to close it off yourself. So let's just have a look and see if that is working or not. So I'm just going to close down my workbook. And then I'm going to bring across where it is stored, which is we need the macro enable one. Then we load it up. Enable the content, of course. And there it is. All worked beautifully. So guys, give that a go and see if you can get a nice splash screen on your spreadsheet model. Make it look nice, make it look much more relevant than what I've just made mine look. And fingers crossed, all yours will be working okay. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to planning your spreadsheet model next, and we'll do that in the next video, and I look forward to seeing you guys there.